Welcome back to the Command Your Brand Show. I am your host, Jeremy Ryan Slate, the CEO and co-founder of Command Your Brand. You can check us out over at commandyourbrand.com. And we have a very interesting conversation coming up for you today. We're going to be talking about one of the largest and most untapped resources on the planet, and that's water. So we have Ken Berenger with us today. Ken, thanks for hanging out with me today, sir.
Great to see you, Jeremy.
So Ken, for people that may not know who you are and what you do, tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do, man.
Okay. I'm the CEO and co-founder and executive chairman of two companies based in the water space, turning water into an asset class. Company called Water on Demand and a spinoff that we've created, something called Grid Water. What I did was I've been in the public market space, elite sales training space for 35 years. I'm dating myself. And I entered I entered a lot of this as kind of a guy with a strange set of skills. So I would help founders raise capital for their company, but I usually entered it more of as an advisor. I entered this situation as an advisor a number of years ago. I saw the urgent, immediate, desperate need, and ended up as we spun off a company, created it called Water on Demand. I became its CEO. I'm its co-chairman, and I've spent the last half dozen years or more raising capital to create water into an asset class. Look, water it's this strange thing. It's the thing we take for granted. We don't drink what's in our tap. Why? Well, because it sucks. Why does it suck? Because the modern infrastructure was set up for a world that existed 100 years ago.
Yeah.
Right. Farms weren't dumping all of these chemicals and industrial waste. And our primary systems were really designed for one thing, and they're not really great at everything else. And because it's public use, there's never seems to be the capital. So we were successful in building and selling decentralized systems. If you own a business way out in the country, you can't connect to, a local water supply. You build a system, you sell it, you give it to him, and he's Bob's your uncle. The problem was he doesn't want to deploy $5 million. That's not what he does for a living. And he certainly doesn't want to be responsible for maintaining it. So with Water on Demand and then more specifically Grid Water, what we created was a universe where investor capital funded these systems, delivered them as a pay-go system. It's not that different from energy or solar, right? It's funded that way. And it allows for an independent business owner to have access to mandated water purity. He gets put out of business without it, but he doesn't have to take on the capital risk. He doesn't have to worry about staying in compliance. All of that's done remotely, and we handle the problem. Now, when I first created the company, I flew to London. It was a funny story. I had this great idea. I was going to show the world that treating water could become an investable asset. Everyone was going to love it. I flew to the Prestel and Partner Family Office Forum, stayed at the Corinthia in London, if you've ever been.
I haven't been to the Corinthia, but I've been to London a number of times.
Lovely hotel, great hotel. And you go into a room and you're in a room with $80 billion or whatever, right? Some of this money, and this is European money, some of this money is 800 years old, right?
Yeah.
So I walk in there and everybody's kind of pitching these family offices as things they should donate their money for, right? Donate their money to. I'm the only guy there saying, I'll make you money. Well, it occurred to me, these guys don't need to make money. They need to preserve what they've got. And that's why all this stuff was tax, how to avoid taxes or how to defer or, that sort of thing. So I go up there and I tell this story about how we're going to change the world. I'm creating the world's newest asset class, water as an asset class. And they loved it. I mean, they followed me out in the hallway and it was just like, oh, this is so great. I can't wait to get involved. And they go, what's the tax benefit? And I go, I haven't figured that out yet. And man, the light went off. It was over. It was just like, remember when you were single and you'd be like, hey, can I buy you a drink? I'm married. You're like, okay. It was,
I'm going to go over here now.
It was that, it was just like, It was like they spotted my wedding ring and it was over. Right. So I went, okay, I get it. So developing a methodology that allows for, institutional type money, family office type money. They're not really, it's not about what you make, it's about what you keep. Of course, they want to keep producing income for the family and continue prosperity. But it's really, it's how to minimize tax exposure. That's probably the most important thing. And I hadn't figured that out yet. So miraculously, the Trump administration brought back the one big beautiful bill that kind of gave a second life to something called opportunity zones. Opportunity zones, when you think of it, it's just, kind of cruddy real estate in bad neighborhoods. No, there's a whole universe in opportunity zones that allows companies to operate inside an OZ, and you could distribute water systems everywhere. It's called an OZB. So Water on Demand positioned itself as an opportunity zone business. Now I can distribute water systems anywhere they're needed. The capital flows through the opportunity zone. All the hiring happens there. There's a compliance component to it, but I can now offer people with capital gains that have 18 months to do something about it, a distinct, exciting alternative instead of just another real estate project, right? Or some startup that, they may or may not make money with, because that's the other side of it.
Yeah.
This is, we're past the kind of the formation stage. We're now in execution stage. We're actually putting units on the ground. We're going to have the first one producing income in June of this year, it looks like. So
Wow.
this becomes a different animal. And the one thing that I think I'm very proud of that's most different in what we do is we're not only providing that sort of money, an opportunity to minimize their tax exposure, which is very, very important to them. But for every dollar they invest, they can track how many gallons of water will be restored as a consequence of that investment. So it's impact doesn't mean everything to everyone. It sometimes means nothing at all to some people. But for those who it's important to, it's literally the first consideration, right?
Yeah.
So now they can say, what's the tax benefit? I go, I'm glad you asked, right? And then you can demonstrate that, and you can say, oh, by the way we have this calculated, for every $1 million you invest, this is going to restore up to 30 million gallons of water every year for the rest of your life.
Wow.
So you literally enter, you make your money, you leave. That dollar is still producing clean water for decades gone by, which there's no analog for it. So we're really, really excited.
So let me ask you this then. I think for most people, they're used to the idea of public water. They're used to the idea of utilities. How is water different as an asset class? I think that's something to really take a look at.
I'll give you a kind of I'll do a comparison that veers into your demonstrated and understanding. So utilities.
Yeah.
People buy utility stocks. Why do they buy utility stocks? Because they pay really great dividends, don't they?
Well, because people have to pay them. They don't have a choice.
It's mandated. Right.
Yeah.
I have to get my money. They're not shutting off. That's exactly right. But also the delivery of a vital service it's mandated and it's reliable. It's not going away. And the dividends are really darn good. So people understand utility. Just picture a micro utility. It's not a multi-billion-dollar project that'll take 20 years to build and require some government funded, boondoggle, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is quick. This is nimble. It's guy needs a system, $1 million, boom, $1 million comes in. 90 days later, 120 days later, this is mostly pre-permitted stuff. They have a system. They're back in business. So it's really the same basic idea, but more for the modern era in a much more private sector, much more nimble, much more I think dynamic way of deploying these vital services.
Do you see this being something, just aside from water, that starts to pick up in other asset classes like energy and things like that as well? Like, do you see this becoming, I guess, kind of a larger trend going forward in the future?
Well, it's got right now there's $1.25 trillion in unfunded water projects. So it's not, this is not a rounding error.
Yeah.
Right. This is big right now. When you think of $1 trillion, you say, well, only government can do it. There's $10.6 trillion estimated of capital gains floating around right now that needs to find something. They got 180 days to make a decision.
Yeah, or it's taxed up to wazoo.
Well, they just whatever they had factored to offset, and it goes away, and their entire financial planning for next year goes out the window. What's really exciting about what we do is we don't just have tax incentivized stuff for capital gains. We've also created something that's mobile and is actually rolling out. There's a $20 billion undifferentiated opportunity right now that we've created a new company called Gridwater. It's owned by Water on Demand. These are mobile systems. Right now, there's 21,000 independent operators that are going to work every day, bringing these trucks and cleaning out commercial sites, food service, beverage, commercial locations. This is not a nice to have business. This is, again, mandated. This is a business that if you don't clean this thing out every 1 to 3 months, depending upon where you are, you face fines or closure or both. Okay. So there's millions and millions of these cleanouts. We can deploy a fully paid for technology to the end user. And I can say, look, I can save you 70 to 90% of your operating costs. What does that translate to? Double, maybe triple your net income.
So they're saving on operating costs versus what they would be paying on public utilities, is what you're saying?
No. They're running these trucks, right? This is a business that already exists. They're running around in old pumper trucks that their dad bought. Okay.
Got it. Okay.
30-year-old technology. This is new cutting edge treat and place technology. Here, take it. Now, these manufacturers that make these systems, they have a problem too. They can't sell them. Why? Who are you selling it to? A guy who wakes up every morning thinking, not how am I going to make money today? What do I have to do to avoid getting put out of business? What stupid thing do I need to avoid that crushes me, right? That's a small business mindset. We've all run small businesses, right? Asking this guy to deploy $500,000 when he has 3 trucks right now that operate fine and he's got 10 years left on the payments, that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Here you go. Try it. I'll double your income. You can sell your other trucks, but here, tell you what, it's fully paid for. If it breaks, we fix it or we replace it. All we're looking for is a revenue share. Okay. If you remove the risk and you can assure them that they'll dramatically increase their net income, right? They're going to make that move. So I'm fixing the manufacturer's problem as well, which is trying to convince a guy who's averse to risk to take a risk on a new technology. Does it make sense?
Oh, it does. And I guess the question I would have, not even at the trucking level, but I guess at the individual kind of business consumer level, how do we incentivize adoption on that? Like, how do we incentivize consumers to want to change how they're using their water?
Well, okay. Consumers themselves aren't the bad guys. I flush my toilet. It's what I do, right? It's what you do is you incentivize the end user, the farm, the semiconductor manufacturer, the tire manufacturer, the beer producer, whatever, right?
Yeah.
Just say, look, you're facing fines every day. You got to truck your water away. What you're providing them is you're converting a risk and a CapEx into an OpEx. And the OpEx more than offsets the risk they take every day from fines or closure or both. Make sense?
Yeah.
Right? It's like it's insurance, right? You won't get shut down. Oh, and by the most end users want to do the right thing. They just don't want to get put out of business doing it.
Yeah.
When you remove the risk and you make it less expensive to operate and you reduce risk to the end user, they naturally are going to adopt. By the way, more and more of this, unfortunately, I'm not a big guy on, I think we have to take care of our air and water, right? But I'm a libertarian.
Yeah.
Right? So, when you say government mandate, I go, ooh, but in this case, governments are mandating this. So these end users, these business owners, whatever they are, they're faced the choice. Do I pay the fine? Do I find another way? We can provide a solution to both.
Well, I guess going back to the original question here, then, like, do you see this adoption? Because we are in a bit of an industrial revolution kind of sped up now, right? Like, it's kind of like the Industrial Revolution if the Industrial Revolution and the Industrial Revolution had a baby, right? Like, we're kind of dealing with something brand new right now with AI, with the way asset classes are changing. Do you see this adoption happening in other sectors too, with more privatization?
Absolutely.
Meaning like the energy grid, meaning like a lot of other ways we're operating.
Absolutely. So all of your industrial growth. So what Trump's one big beautiful bill, he's throwing around 100% bonus depreciation like free cookies.
Yeah.
right? He's a developer. He's a real estate developer. How do you get a guy to build? Tell him he can write the whole thing off right away, right? So all of that growth, that can't happen. Industrial growth can't happen in cities where an existing system exists. It has to happen outside. Are you going to build a multi-billion-dollar water processing plant for a single end user, even if he just deploys 100 million gallons a day? Of course not, right? It's these miniaturized microsystems. So as this $6 trillion of, I believe he said $5 to $6 trillion of manufacturing coming back home, reshoring, right? They all need to build somewhere. They're not going to build in the city. They're going to build in the outskirts, in the exurbs, or even in the country. None of those have traditional systems, have systems in place that can address it. So these will all be, every place that's going to do AI is going to need its own micro utility. You're running a couple million gallons of water a day to cool your servers, right? So every AI place, every energy producing place, and we're going to need energy for the AI, so they fit hand in hand. All of that's going to happen in the outskirts where no infrastructure exists, and that's exactly how we solve the solution. And I have very anxious investors who want to defer taxes, who don't want to have to take the hit, and they don't want to take a risk on a 1030 exchange in real estate, which a lot of times fails.
Well, I think we're kind of in store for a lot of disruption across the board because if you look at it as well, a lot of our legacy systems, a lot of them are breaking. And I think energy is actually an incredibly good example of this because right now, the energy sector doesn't have enough energy to fund a lot of these AI facilities and things like
No,
that. And the
no.
end consumer is getting slapped with fees and things like that to
No,
cover
we're
it.
paying for it. No, we're paying for it,
Yeah. So
right?
it does seem
So
like things are going to be a lot more decentralized in a format like you're talking about in a lot of sectors.
100%. So as these AI data centers open up, I look personally. I see, and you and I have very similar philosophies on a lot of things. I think they're going to put in little mini nuclear systems, and it's going to service that AI data center. And the government's going to say, "Look, bleed off some of your output to the local community because our energy costs have gone up 50-60% since these AI data centers are
I live
opened
in
up."
the middle of nowhere, Ken, and my energy costs in the past year have more than doubled, and I'm not using more energy.
Why? Well, but Amazon is.
Hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
AWS is, or,
Yes.
or Claude or whoever. Exactly right. I live in the exurbs, right? I'm right on the border of the country. My energy bill, here's the thing. We don't think about it. I look at the energy bill, it's $200 a month. Okay. But I look back at what it was 6 years ago, it was like 80.
Yeah.
Now, it's kind of that creeping thing. You don't notice it.
Hmm.
But to people that are, barely middle class, it's terrible, right? So picture energy. Now picture water costs. Water costs are actually more expensive to people that are poor because they have fewer options. So this solves this. Look, if you can fix the water where at the point of discharge, someplace off in the country, right? If you can fix it there, then what's being discharged back into the main system is far better. What happens is the overall water quality that we consume improves by a factor because picture 10,000 locations now right now it's being dumped in a river, ends up in a reservoir, whatever. Okay. Um, Picture that now being decentralized and treated at the point of discharge where the pollution's happening. What happens is as it goes downstream clean, the net effect to us as consumers, water consumers, changes dramatically. And I mean, in a
Well,
matter of
that's
years.
an extremely important point because then we see that in the change in medical costs. We see that in the change of so many other costs because all of those things are trickle down, right? If I guess, excuse the pun here, but in this sense,
You
if we're
didn't just do a
getting,
water pun, did you?
I didn't
Oh
intentionally do,
my.
but
Okay.
I did.
It's all right.
Um,
It's forgiven.
but looking at it, you would have to assume if we're not having a high quality of water, we're seeing the ramifications not just in our use of water, but in other areas of our lives.
I'm going to give you a anecdotal thing.
Yeah.
Just anecdotal. You're a pet owner. You love cats, right? You got dogs, cats. Okay. So the average pet's life expectancy has been cut almost in half in the past 20 years.
Oh my gosh.
Why? Why? We can get into the Bobby Kennedy thing about processed dog food and all that crap, and it's probably true. But they mostly die of kidney failure. That's from the water. It's all the
Wow.
crap that's in our water, right? So this is having a net health effect. Now, we're much larger than an 8-pound dog or a
Right.
10-pound cat, right? But the net effect is different. And we tend to do bottled water and things like that. But this is having a net health effect.
Yeah, but
There's no
even the
question
bottled
about it.
water, you don't always know the source of it. You know what I mean? There was a scandal a bunch of years ago. I can't remember which brand it was, where they were basically filling it at a gas station in Maine.
Right. It's the same. The gas station, that's the same place I get my sushi from.
Yeah.
That's awesome, right?
Yeah.
No. So the obvious truth is that even if you test your water, I guarantee you there's multiple contaminants. And there's a website you
Oh,
go
so
to.
I moved in here about 5 years ago, and one of the things you have to do is, you have to test your well when you move in. So
Okay.
we had to have one of those big blue light systems put in our house because of the amount of bacteria that was actually in our
UV.
well.
Yeah,
Yes.
UV light. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, forget about that. I'm talking
Yeah.
about the industrial contamination,
Mhm.
right? It's in a well, right? That means it's in soil. Soil's been exposed to all this crap. You live in what, North Jersey, right?
North Jersey,
So
yeah.
there's a lot of farms out there in that county where you're at, right? There's a lot
Mhm.
of industrial waste. So here's my point. This becomes an incalculable health benefit in the long run. It becomes an immediate wealth creation event for people today that want to invest in something that they can have a measurable impact on the environment, have an indirect, less measurable, but certainly events at some point calculatable impact on human health. Bad water is one of the greatest human health crises we have, right?
Yes.
And then lastly,
Water is
the
so
focus
plentiful, but it's not clean enough in enough places.
well, also, it may satisfy you won't find water that's good in every contaminant, but what's the combination do? If it's just below the threshold in all the contaminants, what's the combination do? We don't know that, right? Here's my point. If you treat it where it's being made bad, then you don't have to worry about what happens when it gets here. So this has a human health impact, a massive impact on the environment, restoring trillions of gallons of water potentially. And lastly, the immediate guys, these guys like me, I can turn a tax bill into an asset class. I can trade my tax bill in for an asset class. That's a win-win-win.
Yeah. Well, Ken, I've really enjoyed this conversation. For people that are watching, if they want to connect with you or find out more about what you're doing, how would they do that?
Well, you can start if you're interested in participating in the mission. There's you can go to my social media, my X channel. It's at Ken Berenger. I'm a kid from Brooklyn, so be prepared. I'm full blast, but I talk about a lot of these things, and I do a lot of thought leadership. And if you're interested in participating in the opportunity, you can go to offer.waterondemand.com. And there's opportunities to invest in our decentralized revolution, and the mobile units are it's a whole different animal. So there's a lot of different things, and you could always get on my calendar and we can set up a one-on-one conversation.
Very cool. Well, Ken, thanks for hanging out with me today. And to reminder to those of you out there watching, if you're watching the video version, don't forget to like this video, leave us a comment, and smash that subscribe button. If you are listening to the audio podcast, be sure to hit that subscribe button in Apple Podcasts so you don't miss us in the future. We'll catch you guys next time.